Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Go Premanandi. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajigacharya Stotra Kashi Srimad Divine Grace Shila Bhai Chanarvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajigacharya Stotra Kashi Srimad Divine Grace Shila Bhakti Vedanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Shila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Kori Vaishnav Vrind Ki Namachari Shila Haridas Thakur Ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड की मथुरा धाम की वृंदावन धाम की मायापुर धाम की जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की भक्ति देवी की श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसलेट बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की श्री युग धर्म हरि नाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की श्रील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसलेट प्रसारण डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Guru. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for coming to this morning's Bhagavatam class. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 1, titled Genealogical Table of the Daughters of Manu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from text 28 to 30. We have text 28 on the board. Eko Mayeha Bhagavan Vivida Pradhanais. Chiti Krita Prajananaya Katham Tu Nu Yuyam. Atragatasthanu Britam Manasho Pidurad. Bhruta Prashidata Mahan Iha Vishmayo Me. Eko Maiha Bhagavan Vivida Pradhanais. Chiti Krita Prajananaya Katham Nuyuyam. Atragata Stanu Manashopi Durad. Bhruta Prashidata Mahaniha Vishmayo Me. Eko Maya Bhagavan Vivida Pradhanais. Chiti Krita Prajananaya Katham Tunuyam. Atragata Tanubritam Manoshipi Durad. Bhruta Prashidata Mahaniha Vishmayo Me. So text 28, word for word translation. Once we read through this word for word translation and recite it together, then for 29 and 30 I'll do the translation and the purports. So verse number 28, word for word. Eka, one, Maya, by me, Iha, here, Bhagavan, great personality, Vividha, various, Pradhanaim, by paraphernalia, Chitikrita, fixed in mind, Prajananiya, for begetting a child, Katham, why, Nu, however, Yuyam, all of you, Atra, here, Agataha, appeared, Tanubritam, of the embodied, Manasa, the minds, Api, although, Durat, from far beyond, Bruta, kindly explain, Prashidata, being merciful to me, Mahan, very great, Iha, this, Vishmaya, doubt, Me, of mine. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Chana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. I called for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, desiring a son like Him, and I thought of Him only. But, although He is far beyond the mental speculation of man, all three of you have come here. Kindly let me know how you have come, for I am greatly bewildered about this. Purport. Atri Muni was confidently aware that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord of the universe. So he prayed for the one Supreme Lord. He was surprised, therefore, that three of them appeared. Text 29. Maitreya uvacha iti tasya vacha shrutva trayaste vibu darshabha pratyayu shlakshnaya vacha prahasyatam rishim prabhu. The great sage Maitreya continued. Upon hearing Atri Muni speak in that way, the three great deities smiled, and they replied in the following sweet words. Deva uchu yata kritasya sankalpo bhavyam tena eva nanyataha sat sankalpasya te brahman yadvaidyayati devayam. The three deities told Atri Muni, Dear Brahmana, you are perfect in your determination, and therefore as you have decided, so it will happen. It will not happen otherwise. We are all the same person upon whom you were meditating, and therefore we have all come to you. Purport. Atri Muni unspecifically thought of the personality of Godhead, the Lord of the universe, although he had no clear idea of the Lord of the universe nor of his specific form. Mahavishnu, from whose breathing millions of universes emanate and into whom they are again withdrawn, may be accepted as the Lord of the universe. Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, from whose abdomen sprouted the lotus flower, which is the birthplace of Brahma, may also be considered the Lord of the universe. Similarly, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, who is the super soul of all living entities, may also be considered the Lord of the universe. Then, under the order of Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, the Vishnu form within this universe, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva may also be accepted as the Lords of the universe. Vishnu is the Lord of the universe because he is its maintainer. Similarly, Brahma creates the different planetary systems and the population, so he also may be considered the Lord of the universe. Or Lord Shiva, who is ultimately the destroyer of the universe, may be considered its Lord. Therefore, since Atri Muni did not specifically mention whom he wanted, all three, Brahma, Vishnu and Lord Shiva, came before him. They said, Since you were thinking of having a son exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of the universe, your determination will be fulfilled. In other words, one's determination is fulfilled according to the strength of one's devotion. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9.25, Yanti deva vrata devan pritrin yanti pritir vrataha. If one is attached to a particular demigod, one is promoted to the abode of that demigod. If one is attached to the pitas or forefathers, one is promoted to their planet. And similarly, if one is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, one is promoted to the abode of Lord Krishna. Atri Muni had no clear conception of the Lord of the universe. Therefore, the three presiding deities who are actually the lords of the universe in the three departments of the modes of nature all came before him. Now, according to the strength of his determination for a son, his desire would be fulfilled by the grace of the Lord. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cham He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatirubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So this chapter, interesting one, because right after this chapter talks of the conflict of Daksha and Lord Shiva, and it spans for over 6 chapters, or a little more than that. So far in this chapter we've seen the description of the daughters of Kardama Muni, and each of them and their succeeding dynasties will be described. So what we've just discussed here is Atri Muni and Anasuya, Mother Anasuya, have actually been performing austerities, and as a result of that, the lords have been pleased and they've actually come to give a benediction. And now, just to bring your attention, in the very first line of the purport, you see Srila Prabhupada writes, Atri Muni unspecifically thought of the personality of God, the Lord of the universe, although he had no clear idea of the Lord of the universe, nor of a specific form. Just to shed light a little more on Atri Muni, it is described in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita that actually, even though it says here it was the strength, or Atri Muni, actually in the earlier verses he's asking for the Lord for a son like him. In the Laghu Bhagavatamrita it is described that even though Atri Muni prayed for a son like the Lord, but Anasuya Mata actually prayed for the Lord to appear as a son. And actually, when you read through the Bhagavatam's first canto, Bhagavatam Canto 1, Chapter 3, titled Incarnation of the Lord, and verse 11. The sixth incarnation of the Purusha was the son of the sage Atri. He was born from the womb of Anasuya, who prayed for an incarnation. He spoke on the subject of transcendence to Alarka, Prahlad, and others like Yadu, Haihaya, which is Kartavir Arjun. And also, if you go to the second canto, chapter 7, verse number 4, the great sage Atri prayed for offspring, and the Lord, being satisfied with him, promised to incarnate as Atri's son, Dattatreya, Datta the son of Atri. And by the grace of the lotus feet of the Lord, many Yadus, Hayas became so purified that they obtained both material and spiritual blessings. So in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita it is described that the Lord actually responds to Atri's, Anasuya's prayers, and she requested, let me see if I can find it here. She actually asked for all three lords to appear as her son. So they all combined, and so when here Atri Muni is saying, I'm bewildered as to how you have all come, it's actually the Lord responding to the prayer of Anasuya, Mother Anasuya. So there's so much that can be said here, and it's also described in the 9th canto as well, that actually Soma, and the who's a partial representation of Lord Brahma, that it is Mother Anasuya was actually impregnated by the tears of Atri. So we find these descriptions that seem to contradict each other, but our acharyas say that it's not contradictory, because what's being described is actually happening in another millennium or another reign of Manu. So now, when I read, if we recall, just 3 verses ago, where Srila Prabhupada actually writes in the purport that Atri Muni desired a son like the Lord, he's not counted as a pure devotee. He's counted as one of those 4 types of pious people who actually approach the Lord for a benediction. So when I read it, it obviously rang up a thought, because he wants a son just like the Lord, and he is not counted as a pure devotee. Why is that so? Now, just to bring attention to the 8th canto, we see again the famous prayers of Gajendra. Gajendra prays to the super soul within the heart and prays to the Lord. And at that time it is said that neither Brahma nor Lord Shiva appeared, Lord Vishnu appeared. And again, the circumstances are similar. Again, it's Gajendra. Obviously, in a previous life, he was King Indradumna. But we see, if we just compare the prayers or the desires that actually Atri Muni has as compared to Gajendra. Again, we shouldn't, just because it's described there that Atri Muni isn't counted as one of the pure devotees of the Lord, we shouldn't devalue who is Atri Muni, actually one of the mental sons of Brahma. It's actually described in the first canto itself. He's actually one of the Manasaputras of Lord Brahma. So he's actually very powerful, and he's actually one of the sages who actually also knows the Vedas. So just by, a lot of times we tend to just put people, classify each other in buckets. So you're not a pure devotee, you are a pure devotee, and we, our minds actually go for a spin. But if we actually compare the prayers, just for our own, understanding and for our own deepening and introspection, very beautiful prayers. Obviously, there are songs. It's been sung as a sutra, and Gajendra Moksha. The prayers of Gajendra are actually recited in the month of Purushottama. So, I just wanted to bring or just highlight here some of the prayers of Gajendra. Just one of them were actually struck with me. The one that I was looking through, Canto 8, Chapter 3, verse number 14. My Lord, you are the observer of all the objectives of the senses. Without your mercy, there's no possibility of solving the problem of doubts. The material world is just like a shadow resembling you. Indeed, one accepts this material world as real because it gives a glimpse of your existence. The Sanskrit is Sarvendriya Gunadrashtre Sarva Pratyaya Hetave Asat Chayo Yoktaya Sad Abhasaya Te Namaha. So, the Lord, again in this verse, in this, and especially in this purport, actually, if we see this, the Lord saying, you are perfect in your determination, and therefore, as you have decided, it will happen. And Srila Prabhupada writes in this, in the purport there, that the Lord reciprocates as per one's determination or devotion. So I was very fortunate to have gotten this copy of Mana Shiksha, which is prayers by Raghunath Das Goswami. Sri Mana Shiksha is instructions to the mind. So these are Raghunath Das Goswami's prayers to, he's actually requesting his mind to be absorbed in, in service to Shri Radha Gopinath. Actually, so in this, there are many such beautiful verses here. And as I was reading through it, a lot of times as for our own purification and introspection, when we just look through what is it that's actually stopping us from being at that stage of purity or absorption. In fact, it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, even a little neha brikamanasti, even a little advancement on this path can protect one from the greatest fear. And somehow the other, at times, that can be a bit comforting, but then that also can just, give us a sense of what do we call that? We can feel complacent that, okay, it's fine. If I've just progressed that much, that's enough. The Lord will accept it. But however, it's best to go to the end. So in this verse, Mana Shiksha, verse number 6, there's this prayer that Raghunath Das Goswami is actually making to his mind. O ruffian mind, why do you burn yourself and me, the soul, by bathing in the trickling urine of the great donkey of full-blown hypocrisy and duplicity? Instead, you should always bathe in the ocean of love, emanating from the lotus feet of Sri Sri Gandharvika Giridhari, thereby delighting yourself and me. So, there's a very strong analogy here of, or a reference here of, that our aspiration is to actually bathe in the lotus feet of Sri Sri Gandharvika Giridhari, but instead we are actually bathing in the great donkey of full-blown hypocrisy and duplicity. Actually, it is said in the Vedic times, when someone would actually be punished, the Kshatriya kings, if someone would actually be committed of any sort of deceit or treachery or any crimes or anything to do with where someone is found cheating, then they would actually be called upon and would have to take a bath in the with donkey urine. Because what happens is that by bathing in donkey urine, you actually lose all of your hair. So later on, when someone is walking through the assembly or walking through the crowds or masses of people, one would know, oh, this person has committed this crime. So that's how they will be. So what is actually refers to that? One is there's this in last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15. It is called Hridaya Dorbalyam. This weakness of heart one has to surmount in order to come to perfect their lives in service of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So this pretense, this guise of being someone else, which we are conditioned to, is what actually prevents us from taking full shelter of Radha Gopinath. There's a story in Ramayana, Sugriva, so as we all know, Lord Ram had been exiled, and when he was exiled, Sugriva was also one of the monkey. He was the brother of Vali, but at the same time he was, being dethroned from his kingdom. So he was actually hiding in one of the caves, And he asked Hanuman, who was loyal to him, and the other monkey soldiers, to please go and check on who is this person, Lord Ram, who's seems to be meditating in one of the caves. So he asks Hanuman, please go. And Hanuman is like, how will I go? He said, you dress or disguise yourself as a Brahmana, and you go, and then, because these two brothers look like ascetics, so when you go there, you'll actually be able to see what's who this personality is. So he goes, he dresses himself as a Brahmana with his mala, he's chanting Ram, 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 he's chanting the name of Ram that he was grown to from his childhood. As he approaches there, Lord Ram tells Lakshman that this person has come, and please go and explain to him what our purpose is here, and please orient himself to us for whatever reason it is. So Lord Lakshman, Sri Lakshman goes, introduces himself and tells him this is Ram. He's been due to unfortunate circumstances, he's been exiled from his kingdom, and he's here looking for an alliance to battle. And that very moment that Hanuman hears the word Ram and chanting, he just falls into tears. He's like, oh my lord, I've been chanting your name since birth. How come I couldn't ever recognize you? And Lord Ram says, you didn't recognize me because you came in a guise that's not of your own. You would disguise yourself as a Brahmana. So that's who we are. We actually, and the Lord says, ye yatamam prapadantam tataim dvajamiham. As you surrender unto me, I reward accordingly. So, very valuable lesson. Similarly, a lot of times when we think, for example, every morning when we read in the Tulsi Arati, Seva adhikaro diyo koro nijobasi. Please make me a follower of the cowherd damsel of Raja, and please grant me the privilege of devotional service. We have to follow in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis. Not become one of the Vrajavasis, but follow in the footsteps of Vrajavasis. There's a very interesting pastime. I actually come across it in one of Dinabandhu Prabhu's books that he wrote on his Vraj Leela. And he writes in that he actually had come across a person who had actually extensively researched Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Obviously, he's a Vrajavasi, and believe his name ended in Chobe or something like that. So we all know of the Brahma Vimohan Leela, where Brahma steals the cowherd boys and the calves, and he, obviously when he is exposed, he feels a great deal of regret, and he comes and apologizes to the Lord, and the Lord, so on and so forth. But after that, he feels such a great deal of remorse or such a great deal of regret of what he's actually done, that he actually goes and he thinks, what is it that I actually will do which will enable me to get the Lord? A lot of times when we, in Krishna's daily pastimes, when he's actually sitting with his cowherd boys, there's lunch that each of the cowherd boys brings, and Krishna brings his lunch. And what do? They each give whatever they bought to Krishna to taste, and then when Krishna tastes, then they have that as Mahaprasad. So Lord Brahma was thinking, how can I get Krishna's Mahaprasad? So what he does is he devises of this plan. And in this, he thinks of a plan, okay, every day when Krishna comes and eats, what he ends up doing is that after he's eaten with his hands, he goes to a nearby pond, and in that pond he washes his hands. So obviously whatever he's eaten, his hands would have the remnants of his food stuff. And when he washes his hands, the fishes actually would get that Mahaprasad. So he's like, that's what I'll do, and I'll actually get, Krishna's mercy this way. So good plan. He goes and he disguises himself as a fish, and he's like, this is my way. And today when Krishna comes after lunch, I'm going to get Mahaprasad. Obviously. I'm seated in everyone's heart, and from me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. What does Krishna do? Now obviously everyone, we all know in Vedic times, or in Vedic perfect culture, we eat with the right hand. Due to other circumstances, maybe the other way around. But so that day when Krishna has his lunch, he comes to the pond, and Brahma is sitting there as a fish. And Krishna very expertly takes his left hand and washes his left hand and takes the water out on the bank and washes, wipes his hand there. So again, we have to follow in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis, or become Das Das Anudas, and that's actually what Krishna wants. So he was trying to cheat Krishna in a way of dividing. A lot of time we think of our intelligence when we, God is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. Omnipotent, yes, we all have, we understand, yes, Krishna can actually solve, he can do anything he wants. He's omnipresent because he's present everywhere. But omniscient, a lot of times we have our doubts and reservations. Does Krishna really know what I'm actually going through? Does Krishna really understand what my heart's longings are? So Krishna can know, and Krishna knows even before we can even desire. So in that way, he humbled Lord Brahma, and similarly with all of us too, who as a matter of a purification, going through anartha nivritti, there's so many things that actually happen in the life of a sadhaka. So in this book, or in this verse that I just read from here, it is described, and it's this pride or this pretense, when it actually enters into our hearts. From that point on, it's a bit of a slopey, a slopey hill for us, just because of our conditioning, and it's happened to, it happens especially to me, and I'm sure others would also relate. When we come new to Krishna consciousness, the kirtans are ecstatic, the devotees are demigods, everyone is just, on another plane altogether. But over time, as our gross and our subtle anarthas actually surface, then it actually prevents us from seeing the Lord. Now, why we're discussing this is because the Lord, in his incarnation in Dattatreya, actually instructed Kartavya Arjun. If you read the 9th canto, we'll see that the Lord actually instructed them. But just because of committing offenses, he was actually killed by Lord Parashuram. Obviously, that too is a benediction. But these Maharaj, there are commentaries by many Maharajas. Obviously, this book has been compiled, or these verses have been compiled by Mother Urmila. But there are many other stalwart devotees such as Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, Sachinandan Swami, Shivaram Maharaj, Jayadvaita Swami, and so many others that have actually written commentaries on these. But what happens is that, and it's described in words which really strike you a lot, is that over time, everything starts from, once I heard one devotee say this, whatever advancement, we see ourselves as here, and we see this as perfection. Now, it can be discouraging. This Mataji said that you can start from here, but whatever small changes you make them permanent. So, make small changes, but make them permanent. But she said the reverse can also happen. Offenses can be innocent, but if it grows, then it actually turns into a mountain which then we have to deal with. And they can be innocent too. So what is actually described here, that over time, if we don't guard against these offenses, then when we may be bowing down to the spiritual master, we may be bowing down to the Vaishnavas, to the sadhus, but we won't have actually faith in them. We won't have faith in their words. There's a story of Prabhupada, Satsvarup Maharaj was once describing. This was very in the fairly early days when they had printed a poster advertising Srila Prabhupada's lectures, and there's one poster, it was described, a picture of Srila Prabhupada, and underneath that it was written, "This man has changed the consciousness of the whole world." And the devotees thought, wow, this is, let's publish it. But Prabhupada was not in New York at that time. And later on, when Prabhupada came, they showed him the poster, and Prabhupada said, who made this poster? He said, this is horrible. He said, the reason why he said, when I first read through it, I was shocked as well, like how could Prabhupada say this? He said, because he said the Guru is not a man. he's bringing the guru to his own platform. So what happens over time, that we also bring, the spiritual master to our own, to the level of our own consciousness. So that's, in so many instances, it basically happens that, we, somehow or the other, it's our own impurity that actually come to surface, and that actually becomes the root of our offenses. So now, with that said, how do we actually come out of this? Because that's actually we all know that we all have our struggles and our challenges, that's inevitable. But then how do we actually come out of it? And that is described here as the two qualities that Bhakti Vinod Thakur actually describes as simplicity and determination. Simplicity or frankness is being focused on the purpose, and determination, having one goal and being determined to achieve it, and most importantly, not to depend on the opinion of others. Once I remember some devotee, and simplicity, like obviously we hear Saralta hi Vaishnava, that's the quality for Vaishnava. Once someone asked, his own is Radhanath Maharaj, how do you develop humility? And Maharaj described, by practicing humility. Such a simple answer, but the answer was, you have to practice being humble. And offenses to the devotees, that doesn't endear us to Krishna. In the Mahabharata, we find this pastime of Duryodhana, when he has arranged for a lavish feast for Krishna. He's invited Krishna. All the chefs from everywhere have actually cooked up the feast. He's got all, a beautiful lineup of singers who are actually welcoming him. And as everyone comes, he tells Krishna, you have come here, please taste these delicacies. And he said, I won't taste the delicacies. And he said, you have been hating the Pandavas since the birth, who are very dear to me. How can I even accept it? So the Lord, and then we see it on the other hand, he actually goes to the house of Vidura and has banana peels. So this is the nature of the Lord, where the reason why we're discussing this is because offenses is what actually prevents us from achieving that level of purity, and most importantly, truly absorbing ourselves in the holy name. Bhakti Vinod Thakur says, 100 offenses make one a hypocrite. 1,000 offenses deprive a person to perform austerities in bhakti. And 10,000 offenses deprive a person of the spiritual practice of bhakti. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see the Mayavadi sannyasis, they are so offensive, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells them, you can actually utter the name Brahman, Brahman, but you don't utter the name of Krishna. So simplicity helps us preserve that simple faith, and determination helps us overcome obstacles, because obstacles will come. That's how, we are actually surfing to the waves of this material world. It'll always be there. But simplicity just means to be focused on the purpose and having one goal and determination to achieve it. I always remember this. Once Ganesham Prabhu had mentioned this, that he had actually heard this from Bhakti Rasamrita Swami. I think the question was, is it something wrong if I were to, let's say if I engage in some activities which are not against the 4 regulative principles? So, obviously, if I don't engage in meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and drugs, but if I'm indulging in something else, let's say I'm watching sports or, whatever it is, is there something wrong with it? And Maharaj gave a very interesting answer, which centered on this key of determination. He said, we all have a limited stock of determination. And what happens is that when we are actually not engaging that determined effort to engage in devotional service, we're actually drawing out from that determination. So for example, he was saying, let's say this morning, if I'm determined to chant all of my rounds in the morning, but for some other reason I'm caught up with work, like all of us get engaged in, so many other activities throughout the day. The intensity to chant at 8 o'clock at night would not be the same as intensity to chant at 4 a.m. in the morning. That you'll always be just struggling against whatever it is. So we all have we all think, oh, we the verse from the Gita, where Krishna says at the end of the 14th chapter, Maya Bichan, Saguna Samati, original and inexhaustible. We all think ourselves to be, our determination to be inexhaustible, but it's actually not the case. As sadhakas, our determination is actually, we have a fixed stock of the determination, and we actually have to make an effort to really invest that in service to Shri Radha Gopinath and the Vaishnavas and the Guru Parampara. If not, then that determination will slowly eat into, and then next thing you know, these kinds of offenses actually encroach upon our heart, and then we just start seeing the whole process as being something as a ritual, which again we see here. It's Gajendra's simplicity, or his simple mood of surrender, due to which the Lord appeared. It's neither of the other, neither Lord Brahma nor Shiva appeared. Lord Vishnu appeared, but here we see all three appearing. But again, there's a backstory to it, which is described in the first canto, because Atri Muni, Anasuya Mata prayed for it. But here we see that this unspecifically, not knowing of, he obviously is aware of that there's a personality of Godhead, but not sure who that personality is. So even for us, we are blessed to be in a parampara that's coming down through Lord Brahma, and then through our Acharyas and through Srila Prabhupada, who are giving us a very clear understanding of who the Supreme Personality of Godhead is. So rather we take full advantage of this and make our lives perfect, or at least strive for perfection to the fullest of our ability. So I'll end here. I've gone a little over time. Maybe time for maybe a question or a comment. Yes, Prabhu. Prahlad and Dhruva, yep. I'll mention about Dhruva, because Dhruva had heard about it by his Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. He said, seeing the Lord, now when they were met, obviously Dhruva, as we know, was given the mantra by the Lord, by Narada Muni, and as a result of that, he was practicing those austerities, and he was actually chanting this mantra, due to which he became, very powerful, and the Lord appeared in front of him. Now, what Prabhu was saying was that seeing the Lord, yes, we may think, we are seeing the Lord, but actually hearing from the Lord is more important, because we see Dhruva Maharaj saw the Lord, but shortly after that, what does he do? He engages in a warfare with the Yakshas. But at the same time, hearing from the Lord is so important. We see these anarthas that actually keep coming, right? So in this book also there was described these anarthas. We may not even be able to see them. To Arjuna, these anarthas presented in the form of compassion and love for a spiritual master. But Krishna right away cuts it down. He's saying that's how these impurities befallen you. Even though to any other person, these will seem to be noble qualities. So that's the anartha sometimes that we have to fight. We just don't know. These subtle and Srila Prabhupada defined anarthas, when you said when you give up meat eating, one anartha down, or intoxication and so on and so forth. But when he said when come from the gross to the subtle actually tends to be a lot more painful for us to overcome. So to answer to your question, is that hearing is actually of a higher importance than actually seeing the Lord, because we see with Dhruva, even with Prahlad, he heard in the womb. So that's what actually made him. You didn't see Prahlad going, a complete 360 degrees. I mean, obviously there's a whole reason and pastime behind why Dhruva Maharaj, what had actually happened, but yeah. once His Holiness Radha Maharaj, even Tamal Krishna Maharaj will say that austerity is the price that you pay. Actually, he was saying sacrifice, but it actually can be said same for austerity. Sacrifice and austerity is the price you pay for advancing Krishna consciousness. So as we see, austerity in the Bhagavad Gita is not only of physically, but it is also of three different kinds. There's austerity of the body, then austerity of the mind as well, austerity of the tongue. So these austerities are there just to, they are actually setting an example of what it actually takes to, yes, they're empowered personalities. For example, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was saying, yes, Srila Prabhupada is a Nitya Siddha, but that doesn't take away the credit for the austerities that he actually performed. All the struggles that he actually went through. It's, he was an empowered personality, Senapati Bhakta, but yet we see him, practically, if you just study his life, you'll see that he only slept for 2 hours or whatever it is, and he was just translating his books. He was really pushing against it. So just to show us, set an example for us. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah. So it's a comment from Chitta Hari Prabhu. Anasuya, Sanskrit, free from envy and jealousy, is the wife of the ancient Vedic sage Atri. Anasuya was the daughter of Kardama Muni and his wife Devahuti. Sage Kapila was a brother and teacher. The Ramayana states that Anasuya lived with her husband Atri in a small ashram in the southern part of Chitrakoot forest. She was very virtuous and aesthetic, which allowed her to gain enormous mystical powers. When during her exile, Sita and her husband Ram came to visit her, Anasuya showed them hospitality and gave Sita a special ointment with which she could remain young and beautiful forever. Anasuya was the mother of such great personalities as Durvasa, Dattatreya and Chandra. Anasuya was also a friend of Shakuntala. From today's verse, it turns out that in addition to a strong desire, we also need a clear idea of what we want. Yes. Devamrita Maharaj talked about his mother, who sometimes sighed and said, I was so eager that my son became a devotee of God. Devamrita Maharaj smiled, well, I have become. The mother exclaimed, I meant devotees of Jesus. Maharaj smiled even more. Mom, you should have expressed your desire more specifically. Yes, yeah. This is Prabhupada disciple, his own is Bhakti Sundar Maharaj. He actually preaches in Argentina and South American countries. And he grew up in the Middle East. And he said that he always desired, when he was growing up, to have been born in the time of Jesus, because he was growing up to be to serve in the Christian tradition. But then when he met Prabhupada, he felt that Jesus actually fulfilled his desire. So we have to be specific and have a clear idea and clear direction which we want to go, or else we'll just be confused, or it can just derail our progress a bit. Thank you, Prabhupada. Anything else? Hare Krishna. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki. Thank you, Prabhu.